Hey, it's Chris. Crowdfunding roundup this week. Should you back it? Everything you need to know about all the new games that launched this week. Hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, hit the go button. It's time. Let's do this. So first up, we got to talk about it. Mordred, CMON. I had this earlier in my video this week of one of the hyped games for me personally going into these crowdfunding campaigns as a whole, right? Of ones that I am anticipating the most because, you know, you always hear these complaints about CMON, right? Oh, they put out the same Marvel, they put out the same zombie side, they put out the... Okay, they're going completely different. Now, again, area control and their other line of area control games, you can say maybe not that different, but they're going somewhere else thematically incorporated. So if you're complaining about the fact that they always go with the other zombie sides or whatever, it's rote and repeat and, you know, it's just putting a different skin on the same game, well, great, this is one that you should be looking at, right? And yet we're not, because also there are some issues that I have with this one, and unfortunately it's not really living up to my expectations once I break down the page, looking through the rulebook, looking through the content, and seeing what you're actually getting. I think the concept is cool, but it gives me vibes of both a combination of Enos and The King is Dead, and you'll see why that is in a second. Now, we're, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, 24 hours in, we're at about $200,000 with 2,000 backers. $110 pledge level is the only one that's out there. Now, you know, with a 2 to 4 player area control game, they're going to throw a 5th player expansion in, they're going to throw an extra monsters expansion in, they're going to throw, you know, some deluxe dice and other superfluous things. But we're going to see where else this goes, because it also gives me vibes of Blood Rage in the sense that I worry about the balance, because you're only having so many monsters rotate in, and you're only having a dynamic asymmetric balance between these factions. And so how is that easily going to be done, especially if you're throwing in a bunch of extra Kickstarter content? It makes me very worried, a la the Dune game from last year as well. So what you're doing in this game is you have one of 3 leaders, Mordred, Morgana, and Merlin, whose influence you're trying to gain, whose influence you're going to be gathering from these tokens on the board in order to gain their special ability to be able to utilize it in order to end up with the most victory tokens at the end of the game. And so what you have going on here is one of 4 different races, or, you know, creatures, species: high elves, hoboyer, underground dwarves, and humans. And you're going to be selecting one of them, and they all have units, just your typical combat melee units. They all have 3 mystics, which are your wizards, and then they have the 1 chief. Sound like Blood Rage a little bit there? You know, okay. You have 5 different spell cards. You have like 12 different combat cards that you're going to be utilizing, and they have this chaos dial, and that is the main mechanism approach that they're going with this, sort of like a Glenmore 2. If you remember or are familiar with Glenmore 2 at all, essentially the person in the back goes next, and each of your actions costs time, and you move a certain amount up, and you only have 3 main actions that you're taking. One is march, one is firing spells, and the other is war. And so those are the 3 different things you're going to be utilizing. So if you want to move for your units, it's going to take you like 1 move action per 1 time unit, and then, you know, it's gonna be 2 or 3, and so it just stacks up, but it gives you multiple ways, and you don't have to move, say, the same units each time when you do that, and you're gonna be allocating to your little player board there. And that's where they talk about the time wisely. Beasts and monsters are gonna be present on the board, and they're gonna interfere with your plans or the wars that are going on in the first place, a la a little bit of Ragnarok there, but in a slightly different way, because you're not controlling these nearly as much. You each have a legendary knight that you can summon to the field as well. And then the chaos board here. This chaos dial is the main mechanism. And so when the last person leaves one of these chaos dial sections, that action goes. That action gets initiated. And so that might be war, that might be activating one of the 3 leaders, that might be activating one of the monsters. And so that's what's happening. And it just goes until everybody goes around essentially the full dial twice, or you run out of victory tokens on the board. So why am I less than enthusiastic about it? It seems relatively simpler than I was hoping. Now, again, don't get me wrong. I don't want a 30 or 40 page rulebook like Lords of Ragnarok, which I've got in the mail recently. But this is like a 12-page rulebook, and I'm not really sure where the nuance is, because CMON has the rulebook out, but there's no videos out. Not even the usual videos. So I don't know what the flow is. I don't know what the spells are. I don't know what the monster's abilities are. I don't know what the 3 main Mordred, Morgana, and Merlin's abilities are. So how the F am I supposed to actually judge whether or not this is going to be any fun? I can't. CMON, WTF. Ridiculousness. And $110. And this is where the comparison comes in, right? It gives me the King is Dead vibes with maybe a little bit of Enos complexity mixed in, right? But I can go pick up The King is Dead for $15 in the secondary market. I can go pick up Enos for, let's say, $50. This is $110 freaking dollars plus shipping. It's going to run you probably near $150 just for the core pledge. I'm not seeing the value, folks. I'm not seeing it whatso forking ever. And that's someone who wanted to like this game. I had this, my number, like 3 game hyped for the second half of the year right now of the games we knew. So I'm kind of pissed, to be frank with you. This should be a $50, $60, $70 game on crowdfunding. And I'm guessing they've just got this price point up for the pre-planned stretch goals that they're going with here. And again, don't get me wrong, you're getting a bunch of content here already. Look at how many monsters you're already getting. How many of these monsters are going to be additional? How many of these are just, getting swapped in and out? So, having 5 additional monsters right now doesn't really give me that much more value when I can only play with, say, 5 monsters in the first place. Yeah, your games are going to be different, but yeah, I'm just not sure what to make of them because, again, no additional information. Now, again, here with the first 24 hours as well, there's already been 10 updates, and that's mostly because here you can see all of the Kickstarter exclusive stretch goals that have been unlocked. We're getting a bunch of extra plastic stuff. We're getting a bunch of extra little sculpts as well. They say there's 3 different sculpts of the melee because you only have 9 melee troops. You have 3 mystic troops, and you have like 1 chieftain. The chieftain, very much like Blood Rage, is a unit. They just can't die. So those are the dynamics you're going to be dealing with, and that's it. That's on the page, though. You can see why I'm a little bit peeved from this standpoint. Now, in the updates here, if we go over here, it says, okay, a little bit more about what some of these exclusive stuff is, right? These little trees, Merlin's trees, essentially, they act as portals that you can lead your army to and from. So, I mean, this is the sort of detail that should be on the front page. This is the sort of detail you should be shouting out to say, okay, this game has more complexity than what's out there. Here are some examples of the spells. Here are some examples of the things that you need to know, especially if you're not already, backing and getting these updates in the first place. I mean, it's just like they just aren't even trying anymore with some of this stuff. And that, again, pisses me off because this looks like an actually pretty decent product outside of their normal scope, outside of their normal range. And you can tell I'm raging right now. And I'm a little bit upset. I'm old man ranting at the sky. So hopefully you're not spitting out your coffee as you're drinking and watching this. But that's why we need to talk about it too, because expect better. And if you don't do better, you're not going to fund better. Those things are correlated, folks. They are. You can't ride the coattails forever. So how many of these projects are they going to have like this? Or, if this one doesn't get, $1 million or $1.5 million by the time it ends, are they just going to say, okay, we're just going to do Zombicides and Marvels for the rest of the, the crowdfunding campaigns, which is not what I want either. But you also have to vote with your wallet. Balancing those 2 things is the most important aspect of things. There you go. Hamlet by the Lake. Now, this is an expansion to the original Hamlet, the village building game from 2 years ago from Mighty Boards. And this is already over $100,000. Now, interestingly enough, there's really been kind of a divisive, you either really like this game or you're not as big a fan of this game. Shut Up and Sit Down gave it their golden review, but this is a pick up and deliver style village building game via the use of several different mechanics. One of them, or the main one, being pick up and deliver, like I just mentioned, in terms of the resources that you were gathering going across, because you have to gather the resources at the site in which you want to build the next tile that will be adjacent to the tile that you are currently on. And you use that through the mechanism of donkeys and workers. Donkeys allow you to transport your resources across this board in a contiguous line. The workers have to be at the place where you want to take either the action of the actual tile itself or the action of building another tile off of the edge, essentially. And what this new expansion is giving you is it's giving you lakes, fishes, and new houses to start at. That last one is the one that we kind of have got to put a caveat on, because I'm not really sure if that means what I think it means, but we'll talk about it after I give a little bit more information here. Now, the real reason that they say you're going to get it is because it's going to give you the deluxeified expansion content that you're looking for if you're a deluxe junkie. And that's where this free wooden little church is. And that was sort of the enticement last time. Although I don't know how well people thought it was constructed. And some of the design choices, especially with this graphical design here, were really the big detriments. My review is yet to come out from it from a full standpoint, so I'm going to hold off on giving you too many disclaimers. But this was a big issue for people. This was, again, it sounds like a small thing. This was really, really tiny. And it made it very difficult to read at times of which one is which. And that doesn't sound, as bad as it was in practicality sometimes. So take that for what you will. But here you go, building your lake. So these new tiles that you're going to be getting in terms of some of the new buildings are also going to have pieces of water on them. And as you build these tiles, you can slowly enclose the lake to go along with it. And when you do enclose the lake fully, you put down fish. Fish is another resource, just like the other 4 resources of the main expansion. And you can catch them and you can move them, and you can also use boats. Boats are essentially a combination of workers and donkeys put together. Mainly, they allow you to move more resources across the lake, but they also allow you to move your workers across a lake as well. You can get meals, you can try and catch those fish, but the other aspect of things that I don't actually see mentioned here is there's a house aspect of things. And this house, you don't leave your workers on the actual board at the end of every round. You put them in the house, and then it says, and this is kind of the weird thing, and I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this right on the rule book, it says that then you just place them wherever you want afterwards. So maybe you don't have to worry about moving your workers as far as you did previously, because you were very limited in how far you could move them before, and you had to be very specific about what you were doing on a turn-by-turn basis, because you only started out with what, like 2 workers, I think, and then you slowly bought more workers and you bought more donkeys to allow you to essentially use a donkey train, right? Haha, that term is I feel like that has an ulterior meaning right there somewhere else on the internet, like Rule 34. But a donkey train to allow you to, transport resources from one end of the board to the other to build on said portion of the board where your worker is in the first place. A couple preview videos here, a couple review videos down here as well. But the exclusive edition really just has a signed thing here, the deluxeified wooden church, and screen printed meeples. And, you've heard me talk before. I like the idea of screen printed meeples. In practicality, they add 0. Less than sun dropping of miniatures for me personally. Printed tokens, printed tokens, printed tokens. Returning backers get a little extra as well from that aspect of things, and a little bit of upgrade here. So that's actually kind of nice. Stretch goals. Are they doing some? No, they're just coming with unlocked stuff, but they do have some surprises later on, they say. So, what's the price point for this? I didn't actually look at this beforehand, so let's see. Upgrade kits are probably the best deal if you have some of those issues with the base game that I mentioned. Expansion, I guess it depends on what you want, but I'm looking at this and going, I don't think that's the deluxe expansion. Yeah, deluxe edition. Now, maybe that is that the only pledge level then you can get? There's no retail level. It's just this expansion level. Yeah, this is just the expansion with all the exclusives. So, okay, for all the deluxeifications, comparatively wise to other stuff we've seen out there, I don't think that's a bad deal. Now, the real question, though, is does this base game just come with the upgraded kit, or this is just a new deluxe edition overall? But based on this graphic, I'd say they kind of combined both of them, is my guess there. It's still a lot of money for a pick up and deliver, and you have to like pick up and delivers. If you're not a pick up and deliver fan, I'm going to say that this one is not going to change your mind whatsoever. Aesthetically pleasing, but your mileage may vary depending on how you feel about it. That is Hamlet in the expansion. Now, this is my sleeper pick of the week so far, and this is Stonespire Architects. I wasn't sure what to expect with Thunderworks games, but this is a combination of sort of role player as well as cartographers, only doing that as more of a set collection in King Domino style fashion, with a little bit of boss monster thrown in between. Now, if those keywords and jumbled jargon of board games confused you, let's talk about it for a second. You play over 4 rounds. Each round, you draft cards. You draft 1 card, you pass it. You draft a card, you pass it. You draft up to 4 cards per round, because at the end of the game, you're going to have a 4x4 grid of a dungeon here that you're creating. And not only are you going to have a little blueprint card, sort of a la role player, but it also gives you vibes with some of these iconography on there as well as cartographers, right? Makes sense now. But you're going to have a 4x4 grid. And the boss monster aspect of this is there's actually going to be paths on each of these cards. And you're also going to have an entrance and an exit. Essentially a grid outline, a grid marker that delineates both the top and the bottom. And if you can connect either your passages and making a loop of the entrance and or the exit, again, that's going to give you bonus points. You're going to have these objectives that you're going for. Oh, by the way, they're offering a stuffy. The real question I asked last week, though, was why are we going to be getting this on crowdfunding? Because Thunderworks has, in the past, really not shown us necessarily the most incentive, sort of like a Garfield, if you will. Support us, it'd be really super nice, but you can still support us at retail. And the reason that you're getting it right now that I mentioned is they're offering a little bit of an expansion down here, right here, the mini expansion that's free with the pledge. And so that's the enticement that you're looking for. Now, if you're looking for something new from their previous side of things, now we also get a new little Cartographers Architects mini expansion with, I guess, just 4 cards for $4. Probably not worth it on its own unless that's one of your favorite games. But bundled in here, that's not a bad price point as well, because again, skip the plushie and it's $36, so $40 plus shipping. So $40 plus shipping for a little bit of this. And this is probably a relatively good thing because if you're anything like me, cartographers could use a couple of these variable cards in them as a whole. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I think this looks like a really, really solid game. From a card drafting, set collection, path building side of things, I wasn't expecting, or I wasn't sure what to actually expect with this one, I guess I should say. I wasn't sure if it was going to be really intriguing to me or just kind of okay. And you know what? After looking at this page, I'm pleasantly surprised. I think the question still begs that whether or not you get it on crowdfunding, because $36 plus shipping, whatever shipping's going to be, probably another 10 down here, 46, is a mini expansion worth $10 to $15 for you? Because that's essentially what you need to ask yourself, even though they say that the expansion is going to be $7. Yeah, so I mean, oh, I actually guessed over, you know, so it's actually only going to be around $8. So still plus or minus. And again, I'd say it's going to be pretty close. Most of the Thunderworks games have been pretty equivocal in terms of their crowdfunding versus retail pricing, and the main difference has been shipping. So are you okay with paying extra for shipping or not? But I think you're seeing they're put out a good quality product. People like to support them, and that's why it's already funded, especially as a light card game, $53,000. There you go. Next up, Sword Sorcery, the Abyssal Legends. Again, this one's a little bit all over the place too. From Ares, we're going to kind of see what the test of the market is for a little bit heavier dungeon crawl with a lot more upkeep and just in general things that you're going to have to be dealing with, because the AI system in this one is a bit unique. It's got a lot more elements of different enemy cards, AI decks, and arrangements that you're going to have to manage in this 1 to 5 player fantasy-esque cooperative game. Now, with the Abyssal Legends here, you actually need to have one of the other base games. Now, they offer you a way to get it. I think you can actually pledge for it on here if you don't mind waiting for some of this stuff, but they also link you to their web shop where you can pick it up right now if you so choose as well. Now they go over some of the key features, and I like this because not a lot of these other campaigns we've seen over the last month or so have reiterated, hey guys, what our game actually is, as opposed to just blabbing at you the components and what the expansion is bringing, right? The actual game itself. No DM, no player elimination, story-driven campaign, world, city exploration, campaign, tactical combat system, customizable difficulty, AI system, crafting, looting, compatibility between all of the sagas. So it's nice. And then they tell you, okay, here's all the range of the stuff. Here's some background stuff. Here's the pledge that you can get. And the new pledge is going to be $99 with what you're seeing here. Now, there are a little bit of exclusives that are going to be harder to get as an availability standpoint post-campaign. It's just, again, expansion for $100 plus. So take that for what you will. Here's everything, essentially, for $250. I don't know if that's actually everything, but it's a majority of what else is out there. And then they run you through, again, what's going to be in the box. And the exclusive stuff you can kind of see down here as they get to the Kickstarter content box. And that's this big guy right here, this Abyssal Lord, because he's the one that's included. And then this tray and the hit dice, but some of this other stuff down here isn't. So whatever other goals are going to go along with it. And so that's potentially just going to increase your value. Now, mechanically speaking, what's going to be new in this one is that they're offering ships, cannons, how you're going to be maneuvering those ships, firing them, repairing them, as well as a new type of hero, new fears, phobias, and weapons that you're going to be using, as well as the mystery of the core expansion in and of itself of one of the heroes actually dying, despite being an immortal legend that is a heroic figure in the, lore in the first place. So mystery stretch goals, social goals, there you go. Get some add-ons from some of the previous stuff. Now you can add on this guy just separately if you have some of the other stuff and you don't want the whole expansion. You just want a little customizability in terms of some of the base game stuff that you already have. And I think this might be, is that one actually the one part up there, or is that just something else? Let's check. No, that one looks to be one of the other maybe Kickstarter exclusive ones from previously. So it's nice that they're offering that as well. Just again, the question is, do you want more of this? Are you saturated with this already? Is this complex system too much for you, especially as a solo gamer? There's more upkeep, there's more overhead. I like the fact that they've got a lot of that previous information on the page, or they give direct links to being able to check it out. We're not seeing as much of that lately. I'll give them kudos, and they've got $137,000, so there you go, Abyssal Legends. Now, next up, we have Wolves, which is almost 200% funded at this point, and I think it's based off of the name and the pedigree that is Coyote and Crow Games, based off of their previous funding projects of their RPG line. Now, this is their 3 to 6 player semi-cooperative take on a resource collection, but legendary-esque with a little bit of Quest Kids thrown in there. Now, I'm saying Quest Kids because you'll understand, if you have never played that game, you get incentivized to actually give other players resources to help them out. But in this game, you're going to be trying to become chief and chieftain as you slowly press your luck to gather more cards, which give you more resources. But doing so may overstretch your capacities in the first place because you can't use all of them. So then you can either choose to try and store them or gift them to other players. But if you gift them to other players, that increases your status. It may help them with what they need to accomplish in that round, but they're gifting you as well status. So you may decide, and this is apparently the other thing, is you can accept them or decline gifts from other players as well. That's the nutshell of the game, though. They're playing it over 8 turns with simultaneous action selection, moving your rank or presence up this grid, trying to be the highest up there essentially at the end. Gathering your cards, gathering your resources, but that's about it. Now, they talk about the premise and the name behind it of trying to get rid of the stereotype and the myth that is behind wolves being mistakenly attributed to the Cherokee people. And they talk about it, representing not really the binary concept of good and evil, but more the complexity of human behavior, both, good and bad in that sense. If you've never heard that analogy, it's actually a very good analogy. But the problem is the rest of this page has not a whole lot of information on it. They talk about the good that they're going to do. There's no stretch goals. It's all non-physical goals that they're going to be adding on to this in terms of like a tabletop simulator and in terms of community donations and things along those lines, which is fantastic. And I love to see that. But as a consumer, okay, there is no rule book. There is no gameplay. There's only the potential for this tabletop simulator version, which is obviously then going to have the rulebook, but that's what I'd like to see. And for a resource management style game on crowdfunding, $55 is a little bit expensive. And the player count, again, 3 to 6 is unique. It's going to give you a little bit higher player count. That's going to be more adaptable. But how do you feel about semi-co-ops too? Because that's what you're going to have to be dealing with. And that's about all the information, though. And so I wish there was more actual information on the mechanics, a little bit of gameplay overview, a little bit of rulebook. I'd love to see that. I don't need videos. I don't need paid content, but I need more on the page from that aspect, just being equal to all the other ones out there, no matter how, charitable they're being with some of these donations, which is an awesome thing. I love to see it on crowdfunding in general. Next up, Shards of Infinity Saga Collection. Now this one, again, is a little bit back and forth. There's some positives and there's some, maybe if you are a returning person, maybe some things you're not going to like to see on this one as well. And the interesting thing is they break out some of it on the main page. They also break down the other in this extensive FAQ that we'll pull up in a minute as well. 200% at the time of me filming this. And the main thing that I'm going to bring to you right now is this is not necessarily for old people wanting to get in. This is a better intro point for a lot of people looking to get into it at that point, not having played it or not having utilized it. Now, this is a deck building head-to-head PvP style game, but with this new expansion, this Saga expansion, or Saga collection, they're adding several different game modes. They're adding campaign mode, they're adding a Saga mode, and they're adding a little bit of everything else thrown in between. Because essentially what you are is you're the shard master. There's shards of, when there's shard crystals that have fallen in the galaxy and you can grab them and power yourself up. There's more than 3 different types of cards that you're going to be utilizing, like mercenaries, masteries, and relics and things along those lines to make your deck stronger as you attack your opponents and knock their health down from 50 to 0 to be the last one standing. You can do head-to-head, which is the Saga mode, which unlocks things as you go more PvP. There's also a campaign mode, which is going to unlock things as you go through a story progression system, sort of like an Aeon's End style-esque cooperative deck builder, if you will. Now, the interesting thing in this is, like I said, this is a $59 pledge point to get the new one. Now, you can get some of the pledge manager tier here for $30, but that's $30, so that's not insignificant. And they say that a lot of this new stuff is adding a new, basically, character, because you start off with these slightly asymmetric decks that are all attuned to different shards of infinity that you're trying to acquire as your end game condition. You have a rotating market of 6 cards here that are going to be present as you buy them and replace them and putting them in your discard pile, a la normal deck building. And then you have a $59 pledge level, which is the main one here, not only for new people but also for returning people, because they mentioned that this isn't necessarily for as much of the returning people, but it's correcting some of the errata as well as adding some of these new modes that you haven't seen previously. But they're not offering all of the other stuff they say in the FAQ because of the collective increasing costs from that aspect of things. But if you are a previous backer, they say you can tag us on social media and get a $10 credit in the pledge manager as well from that aspect of things. Now, the other issue is that the other pledge levels are all deluxeifications. There's no other gameplay content level. So this is the main one that I'm showing you because this just adds foils of everything. This just adds sleeves and shields. This just adds playmat. So you're not really getting any more additional content from any of those other levels. So what else are you doing? You got your standees, you got your trackers, and some of this other stuff is the stuff they've upgraded as well. The trackers, the tokens, just the deluxeifications in terms of just better quality components in the first place. They run you through a lot of the cards, and again, it looks beautiful. I don't actually have experience with this one as a deck builder, as someone who loves deck building, so I'm intrigued by this one. This one's probably going to be a remind me and keep it saved until the end. The exclusive stretch goals are all being available as well, and that's another interesting standpoint we don't always see from games recently, especially with all the other campaigns we've talked about already. We have not seen a lot of that, but the basic concepts like I talk about, right? You know, play your cards, buy new cards, attack your opponent, knock them out. Here are the several different types of cards that they illustrate, and then they talk about what you're getting new in the Saga collection of slightly different mechanics overall, slightly upgraded, slightly errata, and then you talk about the different types of mechanics like the Saga mode, the campaign mode, as well as the stories. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Let's pull up the FAQ just so you can see it here. And let's see, it says right here, what's new for previous owners? So they run you through, okay, this is all the new stuff directly, and this is all the new stuff you can get. But can you purchase everything that's not in the original and its expansions? No, this is what I was talking about. It just can't accommodate everybody. It's going to be too cost ineffective for them. So they talk about what the new stuff is and what you can do to get that social media credit as well. So take it for what you will. That's it. I mean, I'm intrigued. I have never gotten a copy of this game. I've never really had it too much on my radar, so I'm intrigued as a big deck building fan. PvP though, especially at the higher player counts, you know, 1 versus 1, straightforward. But when you start getting into that 3 and 4 player counts, especially like even with like Marvel Dice Throne, right? It's a little dicey. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Because of, you know, the King of the Hill sort of thing, the runaway leader, or the pick on the leader Munchkin style of things as well. So I don't know how it addresses it. There's enough information on the page though in terms of videos and rulebooks, so check it out. I feel slightly more interested in this one, to be honest, after looking at the page more than I felt beforehand, even though I knew it was coming out this week. So there you go. Next up, we have Yama, another sleeper pick of the week here. It's an abstract style game of just Connect 4, but it's done in a slightly different way. Cannot here put the other 2 games in my collection of the abstracts named Iro and Sayu, which are sort of a little bit of chess-like abstract with tokens or chips, as well as Sayu, which is a flipping arrow-based game trying to get an Othello-like control in the first place. Now, this is more of a tic-tac-toe 4 in a row, Connect 4 style of things, but it's done with cubes that you can not only build vertically as well as horizontally, and that's the aspect of things that's completely different here. But the concept otherwise is just that. I mean, you lay them down however you want. You can lay them on top if you have enough to put it on top, and you're going to be trying to get 4 in a row, either from the side, from the top, or from the side. And so it's just kind of cool. There you go. It's only going to cost you $30. If you want to get all of his other games, you can check those out as well. You can get all of them for about, what is that, like $80? And so the other one that I don't have, here's Iro, here's Sayu, and here is, I don't even remember what this one is. This is Wana. And so Wana is actually the one I think I would appeal the most, because Sayu and Iro are really longer abstract style games that are deep strategy and less tactical nature. And I prefer a little bit more tactical nature in my strategies. So this one actually is the one I'm really interested in, along with this one, to be frank. I've got it saved right now, you can see. So that's it. That's why you should know about it and talk about it in the first place. Make over your game room, right? All Play. All Play is coming back, and they're offering you tables and they're offering you shelves. Now, I give them a lot of kudos. I think these shelves are really cool. If you're looking at this image right here as it's going back and forth, the shelves are actually modifiable and adjustable in terms of the size and shape. So if you have boxes that are really large, because I mean, that's the problem with the calyxes behind me, right? And the calyx behind the camera is that they're all uniform shapes. So it allows you adjustability and arrangeability in that sense to get what you want. Now, I always hate the pricing of these tables on crowdfunding, and this campaign is not really any different as a whole, because they say it's a $400 table. It's not a $400 table, because it's probably going to cost you $100 shipping. I don't actually know the shipping. I don't remember what it was at the bottom of the page, but you know, you have all these customizations and add-ons and all these other stuff that's going to go along with it, and all the glazes and all the toppers and all the, you know, drink cup holders and play mats and everything that goes along with it. So by the time you actually even get a halfway decent order, it's going to be like $800 or $900, which again, it's not bad if you're actually getting a full-size table, but you also have the place to put it, and that's more of the issue. I personally have no place to put it. I would splurge and buy this if I had anywhere to put this. I would, but I have no room. I mean, you know, that's what having a third kid does to you, right? There goes the game room. There goes my new studio setup, right? Shut up and sit down gets one, but I'm going to be stuck in this room of about like 8x8 for a while for the rest of my life. Anyway, until my kids go to college, and that's, 15 years away. So prepare to, deal with Liege. Otherwise, I'd have more interesting, more entertaining, randomized walking around videos. And I should really get like a camera on a, little holder and do that. Anyway, but I mean, that's what you're getting here. And they've got shelves and they've got everything else there. And I'm not going to run through it anymore. I mean, it just gives you what you can do here and how you want to do it. And you can even see how you can rearrange it and shelve it and customize it however you want. So I thought I'd mention it because it's BoardGameTables and I'll play, and they put out a good product. I just, I always feel weird buying about this stuff online. I just do. This is something that I've never been comfortable buying online. I always like to see furniture for me personally and test it out and just, again, it's like reading something online, reading a journal article online versus printing it off. I'm still an old style printing off. I'm still an old style. I want to see my furniture in person. So take that for what you will. Now we're going to go over here to Luddite, a roll and write campaign game with a graphic novel. Now I think the concept is really cool. I think the gameplay looks solid. It's just literally funded at the time of me filming this. And the price point for the print and play is exactly what I want to see, about $5. The digital game, okay, great. The physical copy, though, $45. That's a huge, massive jump. And that's because you're not just getting gameplay. You're not just getting a content that's printed. You're getting like a playmat. You're getting dry erase, which I give them a freaking lot of kudos because I wish more roll and writes would do dry erase. It's a great solo, competitive, and cooperative game. I kind of worry about that because very few games are good at all three or excellent at all three. But this is the stuff you're getting, right? You're getting the dice tray, you're getting the dry erase markers, you're getting the metal coins, you're also getting a graphic novel. And so I just don't want to pay for all of that. And so that's why the $45 tier one, it wouldn't be for me, but this $5 one is definitely one I'm looking at as a remind me here. And they give you a little bit of comic books and, premium art prints and some of the exclusivity there. And it's a dark, dystopian, hacker-esque based system where you're rolling 3 dice every time and you're choosing how to allocate those dice because every turn you have to lay one of these dice over under the clock. And that's basically the timer mechanism. But if you're laying one of the higher ones, it helps you burn through the clock faster, which makes the game end faster as well. But then it also allows you to do extra damage to the AI system that you're fighting in the first place. And so that's the dynamic you're going back and forth. I mean, it's got a bunch of hacker-esque systems in terms of, okay, well, you've got 3 spaces here on this one, and if you fill all 3 of these, it's a switch getting toggled back and forth and back, and then if you do it all 3 times, then it's toggled into the on position, and that means you do 2 damage at the end, so you have to do enough damage to this AI system by the time it ends. And it's got a rulebook that's almost as long as Mordred's, because Mordred's is only about 14 pages, this one's 12 pages as well. So, I mean, straightforward. Graphical design is great. There's a lot of stuff on the page here you can get. The rulebook is out there, and I mean, just seems kind of okay. So if you're into this, I mean, I guess my preferred option, unless we get down here to the bottom and they say you can piecemeal it a la mode style, I don't really see that yet at this point. I would just say that you get the print and play. I don't think the other levels are worth it, to be frank. I just don't see the value in the printed stuff for all the other stuff here. That'd be my only problem. So otherwise, solid roll and write, solid campaign, killing it. $14,000 is really impressive for roll and writes, folks. Don't get me wrong. So there you go. Next up, Tome, the Sound Codex. This is an expansion to the existing base game, the Codex, the Light Codex, I believe. And so this has 107 backers. It only has like 35 ratings on BoardGameGeek, but it's a relatively well thought of trick-taking game for 2 to 4 players. You can play as a solo, everyone versus everyone, or you can play in 2 teams of 2. And essentially what you're doing is you have spells, and spells are representing the tricks and the factions or the suits that you're essentially playing up against. And you're trying to chain these together, because if you can chain them together, you can steal the power and you make it powerful in order enough to win the trick, not always dependent on the number in that sense like you're more used to in regular trick takers. But if you play offsuit, because you are not required to follow suit, well, your card basically gets nullified and the chain gets broken. And so that's the dynamic that you're having to deal with. You're getting 3 new ones here in terms of the suits, essentially, was what they're going for. Sleep, poison, and sound spells that are going to be adding things. The expansion is $5. The base game is $15. They've got a few minor stretch goals here that they're waiting to hit. And so, yeah, do you like a little bit different trick-taking style of things? I am not sure how this compares to other trick-taking styles, but it definitely is a little bit different, at least on the description. Again, I wish there was more on the page. There's a bunch of videos that say, hey, click me, and this is what you need to know if you click me, but there's no rule book on here. There's no what are these spells actually doing. Again, so just like Mordred, there needs to be more information on this page. And I think that's probably the biggest thing hurting it. I mean, is it going to fund? Absolutely. But could you have a lot better funding if you actually gave a better explanation and a full, more description on the page rather than just linking videos? As much as, I'm a video content creator in the first place. Yes. But there you go. Expansion. Check it out. Next up, Picky Eaters. Again, $12,000 for a light style set collection game with multiple actions that you're taking on a single turn. So essentially in a 2 to 6 player game, what you're trying to do is you're dealt 5 cards and you are putting down 1 guest every single time. You're doing this 5 times. And each round you're having a certain number of actions and allow you to gather cards, grocery shopping, build recipes, and then serve the most amount of food that you can that matches the guest's choices or their opinions, their picky eating. And so you do that over 5 rounds, and the person with the most points after the end of the 5 rounds with all of these ingredient cards, recipe cards, item cards, and guests wins. Again, there's a little bit of description here, there's a rule book, and there's a how to play video. Now, the only problem I have is, I mean, $30 seems fine for a light style card game, but then $79, it gets you 6 playmats. Whew, that's a big bump up there. I'm not sure I need a playmat for a light style set collection game, but $10 each if you want them. Now, I'm sorry. I got to point this one out. No shade on anyone else, but best card game of the week? What does that even mean? You better be playing only card games like 30 times a week, right? Sorry. I just had to point that quote out. But yeah, that's a whole nother video that I've got canned as well of, you know, we need to do a better job as content creators about putting quotes out there. That, again, is going to get me in trouble at some point. And so I'm not trying to be mean. I think we just, again, holding standards higher as a whole. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. And sometimes, you know before I get myself in too much trouble, that it's not always people on my side of things choosing the quote. I've had publishers pick quotes as well and put them on the page, which now I'm being very cautious about saying, hey, please ask me about the quote first from that side of things. Anyway, ding dong. Again, 200% funded with this party style set collection game where you're trying to scare off kids from egging and toilet paper in your house with a thematic incorporation of either bribing them or scaring them off with these items right here and comboing the points as you go along. So yeah, light party style game, expansion, price point, deluxe, $30. Okay. I mean, light style, family friendly collection game. If you're in the market, check it out. Nothing else to say. Just briefly covering it as well. Drinking Quest. Belch of the Wild. I don't drink. Don't really endorse drinking. You can say what you want about it on the channel. You know, it's one of my personal things. You want to play a drinking game? Flip over cards, drink your drink, and, you know, get in-game objectives for doing so? Well, there you go. That's all I'm going to say, folks. I'll mention it, but not going any further. That's it. That's the roundup this week. Again, I told you, a couple interesting games. Mordred, I'll be frank, it's a letdown. Yama, a little bit of a surprise there. Stonespire Architects, again, very pleasantly surprised. That's probably, of me backing anything this week, that's probably the highest. I'm probably going to go and back Mordred, though, right now, just so I can see the updates. Because, again, you know, if you're not updated, you don't get any of those 10 updates that they've already put out at the time of me filming this, knowing any of the useful practical information. Because the rulebook is fine, but it's one of those games and rulebooks that the rulebook doesn't give you any flow of how things are actually going to appear whatsoever. It gives you the very dry, this is what is going on in the game, not the, oh, that's what it actually, right? And you know what I'm talking about. You've read those rulebooks, and you know based on stuff that you have in your collection already. So there you go. Highs and lows. I got nothing else. Got a couple reviews I need to get done. I know I talk about that every time I put out a video, it seems like, but I've actually got a couple canned, and I need to film a bunch. I actually played a bunch of stuff last weekend, a bunch of new stuff that Hatchet Board Games sent me, and we got some highs and I got some lows. And so gonna have some strong opinions on a couple of these games. And just from this past video as well, the Hamlet expansion. Not that I have the expansion, but I have the base game. So hopefully in the next week I'll have that one out too. So boom, there we go. Top games coming next week though. Tomorrow. As always, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, somehow-ish. Either way, thanks for hanging out with me and listening to me. I appreciate it. Peace out!